I'm not sure there's a more exciting time to go fishing than those first couple of trips that you take in the spring. After being stuck inside all winter or staring through an 8-inch hole in the ice, we finally get to put the boat in the water, cast a long rod, and catch a couple of fish. Now, no matter where you live, whether it's up in the North Country like I do, or down south, or out east or out west, I want to give you a set of 3 things to look for on your Humminbird fish finder that will help you find and catch more fish on your first few trips this year. Now, everywhere in the country, fish are always going to be drawn to that warmest water available very early in the season. Now, nearly universally, that means shallow water, but of course, not all shallow water is going to be as warm as every other piece of shallow water. So we need to look for specific areas in the shallows that are going to help to hold that warmest water. Well, from my experience, it's protected bays, especially bays that are on the north side of the lake. Right? These are going to be areas that are going to be relatively sheltered from cold northwest winds that can sweep cold air down from up north during the spring. They're going to tend to have that nice southern exposure, so they're going to get lots of sun beating down on those bays during the course of the day. And hopefully, the characteristics of that bay allow it to hold that warm water from day to day, so it kind of keeps getting warmer and warmer and warmer as spring goes on. And if you can find water in those back bays that is, 3 to 5 degrees warmer than the surrounding deeper water, then that warmer water is going to help to concentrate fish. And that's whatever kind of fish you're chasing, whether it's panfish or largemouth or walleyes. All of those fish are going to be drawn into that shallow, warmer water to try to feed. Now, the second thing we're going to be looking for in those shallow bays is cover, right? We need something that's going to attract and hold bait fish and give the predator fish that we're chasing a place to set up a reasonable ambush. So my recommendation is to use the side imaging capability of your Humminbird fish finder to very quickly survey large portions of the bays that you think you might want to fish in. And the things we're going to be looking for will generally be things like downed wood, and maybe that's stumps or trees that are in the water, or maybe it's just trees that are extending into the water from the shoreline. We're also going to be looking for that first emerging green weed growth of the year. Now, that green weed growth is just a harbor, a safe haven for all kinds of life, from little bugs that bait fish are going to feed on, up to the larger fish that we're trying to catch. And if you're looking for walleyes or smallmouth, those kinds of fish at this time of the year will be especially attracted to hard bottom features. Okay, so things like rocks and gravel and things like that in those shallow bays will help to hold those kinds of fish. Now, the final thing to be looking for, of course, are the fish themselves. And again, we're going to rely on our Humminbird side imaging system to show us the fish that are inhabiting these shallow, warmer bays. Now, remember that in side imaging, fish are going to appear as bright white spots with associated dark sonar shadows. And if we see any sort of separation at all between the bright spot and the dark sonar shadow, then that is a 100% guarantee that what you're looking at is a fish. Now, we'll be able to see those fishy side imaging features, the bright white spots and the dark sonar shadows, both when our boat is underway, when we're motoring into the bay or kind of patrolling around it looking for structural features, as well as when the boat is in a fixed position. Whether you've spot locked, or you've put your talon or your raptor down, or you've got an old-fashioned anchor, right? When the boat is stationary, you're still going to be able to see those bright white spots with dark sonar shadows on your Humminbird side imaging view. So those are the 3 key things we're going to be looking for with our Humminbird electronics here in the early part of the season to try to find and catch more fish. Well, that's the lesson. Let's see if we can put those tips to use and catch a few fish. nice one. It's been a long winter, so all these fish are nice. Oh, that's actually a really nice one. Yep. Oh. Oof. Big fish. Big female crappie. The size of that one, huh? Well, it's taken some time, but by sticking with the plan, finally has some fish that are going here. So what I did was really focus on trying to identify some of those bays that are on the north or west side of the lake, shallow bays, and I did that using my Lake Master map. That's where I ended up right now. Finally, in this one bay, I found the warmest water that I've encountered all day. When I started, I have lots of water temperatures at 51 or 52. I came back in here and now it's 55. Okay, well that's part one of the equation, right? Is find that warm water in those shallow bays. Part two is I've never fished in this particular bay before, so I ran both shorelines with side imaging, found some nice weeds that were growing up near this particular shore, kind of interspersed among some boat lifts and docks and down trees and things like that. And it looked promising my first pass. My second pass, when I came through it again, I saw what I thought were some fish. They looked like kind of a larger group of fish. So I started thinking panfish, crappies, things like that. And then when I decided to start fishing it, I taloned down and now could see, significant numbers of fish on side imaging cruising between my boat's position and the shore. I'm only 60 feet offshore, something like that. And so I would see these waves of fish come through that were 10 to 20 feet off of shore. So by working the system, shallow bay, warm water, fine structure, and then fine fish, I was finally in a position to start catching. And so what I've been doing for about the last hour or so is having some pretty consistent action with some real nice crappies. Now, no trophy 13, 14, 15 inchers, anything like that, but lots of nice 10 to 12 inchers. And to get them to bite consistently, I've had to really slow down. So what I like to do when I'm fishing panfish like this is generally cast and retrieve with small plastics, little compact plastics. And I caught a couple fish doing that, but given the water temperature, 55 degrees, and that there's a fairly steady breeze blowing through here, I really felt like I was fishing through that area much too quickly, that I was missing strikes. So I slowed down substantially by hanging my soft plastic under a float. So I've got my jig and soft plastic suspended maybe 18 inches to 2 feet below just a regular clip-on float. And I'm fishing here in 4 feet of water, 4 to 5 feet of water. So you figure that, the bait is probably halfway down or maybe a little closer than that, closer to the bottom than that, given the fact that I'm fishing shallower than the boat is right now. Now, to a significant degree, a lot of the action on that bait is now coming just from the little ripples and wave action that's kind of rolling through here from the wind. But I am giving it, some gentle little pops, kind of making that bait dart beneath the float. And lots of pauses, right? I'm getting all the strikes on the pause. And so if you imagine that action brings the fish in, well, the pause gives them an opportunity to make that positive feeding decision, sink the float, and get a quick trip to the boat. I do an awful lot of pan fishing throughout the entire year. 99.5% of it I do with this rod. Oop, there, just missed one. So this is a St. Croix Legend Elite Panfish series rod. It's 7 feet in length, so it has really good length for casting light baits a long way, light power, extra fast action. This is by far, and I've fished a lot of panfish rods over the year, this is by far the best panfish rod I have ever handled, hands down. It's an exceptional piece of rod engineering that the experts at St. Croix Rod up in Park Falls, Wisconsin have come up with. It is incredibly light, exceptionally sensitive, really well balanced, super comfortable in the hand, and it has plenty of power to handle larger fish that you're going to encounter whenever you're pan fishing, whether that's walleyes or smallmouth or largemouth or northerns or whatever. This rod can kind of do it all. And a lot of times when I'm just going fishing just to have fun, this is the rod that's going to be in my hand because it is such a joy to fish, so entertaining to fight the fish on the way back in. It's just a great rod. And if you fish panfish with any seriousness at all, you owe it to yourself to look at this St. Croix Legend Elite panfish rod. And again, the one I'm fishing is a 7-foot light power, extra fast action. There's lots of great powers and action, lengths, powers, and actions in the series, but I think this one is the most versatile, and it's the one that I have 2 copies of in my boat because I absolutely think it is the best panfish rod out there. Now I have this Legend Elite panfish rod rigged with a 1000 series Shimano Vanford reel. Right, you wouldn't want to go any heavier than that. It would just ruin the balance of this exceptional rod. I'm spooled up with high vis line, so this is 20-pound Seagar Smackdown braided line in the high vis green color. I think it's called Flash Green. Pretty much all of the rods in my rod locker have some sort of high vis braid on them, whether it's the Seagar Smackdown or it's high vis Suffix 832. But I really like to be able to watch my line. And on a windy day like today, being able to watch your line makes it much easier to deal with basic line management issues. A lot of times when I'm just casting and retrieving, I'm watching the line to give me visual indications of strikes. And so that would be my strong recommendation, is go ahead and spool up with a high vis braided line. Now, of course, you don't want that opaque colored line down there by the lure, so I have about a 3-foot section of 8-pound Seagar Abrazex fluorocarbon as my leader, and I have the leader joined to the braided line with an Alberto knot. And then, of course, at the end of the leader, I've got my jig and soft plastic. Now, I've been using a couple of different kinds of jigs based on the kinds of soft plastic baits I'm using. So for a traditional soft plastic, a traditional PVC soft plastic, the best jigs, in my opinion, for this kind of a presentation are 1/16 ounce VMC Moon Eye jigs. So those have a really good hook. They have kind of an aspirin-shaped head with a nice eye on it. The key is the wire plastic keeper on those jigs. Really keeps that soft plastic pinned to the head. You can go through many, many, many fish on one individual bait using a jig with a soft plastic keeper on it like that. My typical profiles for compact soft plastics are generally minnow shapes when I use those traditional PVC soft plastics. I like things that have a chartreuse tail. I'm using one that I call the Viking color today, so it has a couple shades of purple and then a chartreuse tail on it. And then another really exceptional panfish bait is something that's new from the bait innovators at Z-Man Fishing Products. And so last year, Z-Man introduced a panfish series called the Micro Finesse series of lures. And there's 5 or 6 different profiles that are specifically designed and sized for panfish. Now, what makes these Z-Man lures different is the material that they're made out of. So they're not made out of a traditional PVC material. Instead, they're made out of an alternate kind of a soft plastic that is exceptionally durable. I mean, you could stretch it like crazy and it doesn't break. It tends to float versus a traditional PVC soft plastic, which sinks completely. And so that buoyancy of the lure really gives a totally different presentation when you're casting and retrieving or when you're just popping it beneath a jig. Now with those Z-Man soft plastics, I tend to use the Z-Man finesse mushroom head. They're called shrooms jigs. And the reason I tend to switch to those is because the bait keeper, the wire bait keeper on those hooks seems to be much better at holding onto the soft plastic bait than would a traditional wire keeper like on the VMC Moon Eye jigs. It'll hold the lure, but not nearly as well as the Z-Man jigs will. So I've been fishing those two kind of combinations, a VMC Moon Eye jig with a traditional 2-inch minnow profile soft plastic, and then the Z-Man micro finesse soft plastics on the Z-Man finesse shrooms jig heads. Again, real light on those. There's one. Well, it sure feels nice to be back out on the water. Oh, nice fish. Catching fish with the long rod after a long winter spent inside. It's a nice spring crappie. And probably a good way for us to end. We've caught a lot of fish today. Let that guy go back. So think about those 3 key things, those 3 key ways you can use your Humminbird fish finder the next time you're on the water this spring. Right? Use your mapping to find those bays on the north end of the lake, those shallow bays. The reason is those bays are going to have the warmest water. Just like today, I found water that's 55, almost 56 degrees now by hunting specifically for those shallow bays on the north side of the lake. Right? Then look for cover. Fish won't be in there if the bay is empty. Today I've got some emerging weeds, I've got some wood, I've got boat docks, that's cover. Right? And then finally, look for the fish themselves. Look for the fish when you're scouting your way through. There's another one. Oh, nice one. And keep that side imaging view active while you are actively fishing so you can see the fish that are cruising through. Nice. Hey, I'm Jason Halfen, the Technological Angler, and I'll see you on the water.